Okay, last session we learned about how to creating React application, and we learned about the component based design. And one example I will show you here. We learned about how the components are designed and used. We will see one more concept here in React application. So generally, how data binding works. Data binding, how it works, we will see. Actually, how to create a React application, starting with application example I showed you. So React shopping, okay. And in this React shopping, so I showed you how to bind and display the data. npm start. Now, one small technique we will see here in React, how to use data binding. Actually, in web development, data binding means it is a technique. It is a technique used in web applications. To access the data from source and bind to UI. Access data from source and bind to UI. Not only that, identify the changes in UI and update back to source. That's what actually data binding is. Data binding means we can access data from source and display. And any change in the data, we identify the change and update back. Actually, JavaScript and jQuery depends on lot of DOM manipulations for data binding. JavaScript and jQuery depends on lot of DOM manipulations for data binding. They use lot of DOM manipulations for data binding. That is, JavaScript and jQuery depends on. But React is handling this in a simple way, but still limitations are there. Actually, data binding is classified into two types. We have one-way binding and we have two-way binding. And the problem with React is React supports only one-way binding. For two-way binding, you have to again depend on events. Actually, we don't need to depend on events if any technology is supporting two-way binding. What is one-way binding, two-way binding? Just overview I will show you here. For example, one-way binding technique, how it works actually. Right. So generally, one-way binding technique means, suppose we have data source. That means we have some variable username. Now in this some value is present and we have a text box. We have a text box username. Yeah. Now generally whatever value is entered into this, it should be displayed here. Whatever value is entered, it should be displayed here. Accessing the data from there and displaying here is called one-way binding. It is one-way binding. That means that value comes here. Now, if I do any modification, that means if I do any changes I done in the data, that is not updated back. That is not updated back. If it is updated back, then it is two-way binding. Some technologies will do that, but JavaScript, jQuery, even React also can't do that. Many technologies are popular because of this two-way binding, and React don't have it. Then again, what we have to do, how to update back? To update back, how to identify the change? We have to use the events like on key up, or we have to use on change. On change, we have to carry this value and update back to the data source. If you are using a technology that supports two-way binding, without writing this, it can handle. I will show you example. Suppose currently, this is one project, leave it at side. I will take to our previous full stack project. In this full stack project, I will show you npm install Angular. I'm installing Angular in this project, and let's create a page. So home.html. Okay. In this page, see doc type HTML head title Angular, and we will link a file here. Script source is equal to, and it is from node modules angular.js. Okay. And in the body section, I'm giving here ng app. Okay. Here I said username input type is equal to text, and ng model is equal to some user name. And in the next line, so hello and username. You see, I am not writing any logic here. There is no logic. That means nothing logic is there, no events, nothing. I am not writing any change event or anything. And here I am typing something. So this value, whatever I am typing, it should get that and update. That means ng model actually. Okay. Now whatever I am typing, it should get that and display. That's very simple. There is no key up. There is no change event. There is no event at all. Then how it is able to manage this? Internally, it is doing it by using some framework techniques, which is not there in even React also. So one of the reason Angular is popular in some environments is because of its two-way binding. React is also popular, but it can use two-way binding, but not internally. So React is popular in only interface building. Angular is popular in entire application flow building. So that means when you are developing a project, only interface is the main concentration, then React, right? Actually, so I already told you, no, both have their own. So React demand is there, Angular demand is there. Now, we have a requirement for UI developers with React, with Angular actually. So you are not yet having that requirement. So, but I will post the requirement mostly in by once you start Angular, I will give you that requirement details. That means one of our MNCs companies, one of our US client require a fresher to experienced people with UI technology and React. It's an US based company. It have only in India, in Hyderabad only it is having branch. So and all others are in US. So and they need UI developers with Angular, but you haven't finished any Angular. So I will, because you are going to start learning Angular from next sessions onwards. So once you finish that Angular, I will post those requirements again, because they need continuous requirements. Now immediately they need few people. After 1 month, again they need some more people. I will tell you, right? We have multiple requirements. It's a game developing company. It's an US based game designing company, game designers. So they are very famous and they want UI developers in large numbers. So after learning Angular, I will send you your filtered profiles. I will select few people from you. I will send those profiles to those. They will directly call you and you can have a interview with them. And so requirement is there. That's very recently given to me. I will post you there. Yesterday only I spoken to them. So this is, yeah. Yesterday only I spoken to them. Actually, this is the company and they have a multiple requirements actually. Multiple requirements on, you see, they need all these people actually. They need all these people. So this is the company actually. They need this and they need large number. .NET, C++, Java, UI with Angular they need. Currently they need only 4 years experienced people. So he said that in few days freshers they need. By the time you will finish your Angular, I will recommend you to those. And on the spot, that means if I recommend few people to these people, they will take immediately. That's the reason I will not recommend everybody. I will first verify here. I will scrutinize them. Then I will forward them, right? And they have branches all over actually. So I already spoken to them. They are in Seattle, Dallas, and London and Hyderabad. And in Hyderabad, they have an offshore campus in Mindspace, Raheja Mindspace. So you can attend. I will tell you the requirements are very huge in number. They need almost 100 UI developers, freshers, because they are working on, they got very huge gaming projects. They need UI people very much. So I will scrutinize first because I'm seeing who is doing exercises, posting regularly into class, and I will filter them and I will select them from our class. I will recommend them. Yeah. But Angular also you have to know. So you start knowing the Angular, then by the time I will let you know. Currently they need experience currently. Freshers, other technologies they need. So many companies are there. This is one of very recent requirement. Yesterday only we have this conversation with them. So the point, what is difference between framework and library? The difference between framework and library is framework inbuilt have all the functions readily configured. You just implement and use them. But library means again you have to write the functions. So up to certain levels, ready-made functionality is given, rest you have to implement. So React problem is React will not support two-way binding. Due to that, what happens is you have to implement one-way technique only. So open here localhost some 3000. Now observe here. Suppose, observe carefully. I will bind this to a text box. I will put a text box here. Input type is equal to text. Now already I told you, as per the rules, we need end tag na. And here to value, I am binding that product dot name. That means whatever product name is there, it will display in text box. Okay, if I do any modification inside it, so it is not allowing any modification. See, it's not allowing. I can't do any modification. It is like read only. I can't do any modification, but you saw Angular. Directly I am doing modification, it is updating back. That means it is only one-way binding. Then how to handle two-way binding? You have to implement a lot of technique behind it. Again, like JavaScript, jQuery, events and all required, right? I will show you. So what is React supports only one-way binding. For two-way binding, you have to again depend on events. You have to depend on events. I will show you how to handle events and state management. State management. So that is the concept. I will show you. So syntactically, one-way binding, how it works, simple. This example I will post. This is the example I will post, copy and paste. This is the example of one-way binding. That means actually we access the data from the reference and we update here. But very important is, so we should not use variables. That means here note is data cannot be stored. Data cannot be stored in variables. Data cannot be stored in variables. So why data cannot be stored in variables? If you remembered in JavaScript, I given one concept. What is difference between variable and property? Outside class, data is stored in variable. Inside class, data is stored in property. What is difference? Remember the difference? What is the difference between variable and property? No? Variables are immutable. Immutable. For property, I showed you accessors. Remember the get accessor and set accessor. For properties, they are mutable. You can change their behavior according to situation, but variables cannot. So data cannot be stored in variables as they are immutable. They are immutable. So what we have to do in React, data is stored always in state. So state is mutable. State is mutable. Data cannot be stored in variables as they are immutable. In React, data is stored always in state. State is mutable. State is mutable actually. So I will show you here React state, how to handle that. And two-way binding also I will tell you. React state. State is a memory container where you can store data and update. You can store data and update according to requirements. So React state is defined by using use state hook. By using use state hook. By using use state hook. Syntactically, how we do? What we have to do is we have to import use state from React. From React, we have to import use state and constant, some value, some reference name, some product is equal to use state, and it is object type. Then you have to define like this. If it is a collection products, then use state, it is an array type like this. So if it is some name string type, then use state, we have to define like a string like this. We need to configure according to what you are initializing. The data type will be decided in that way. That means name is what type, string type, products is what type, array type, and a product is what type, object type, like that. Zero number type, true boolean type, like that. You can initialize the data. Why constant? Why we use constant? Constant indicates that initialization is mandatory. Constant indicates that initialization is mandatory. And after initialization, you cannot change the configuration. Value can change, but configuration cannot change. That means once you initialize product as object, it will be always object. In that, value can change, right? But it is always object type only. That is the constant. So that is use state. Actually, that is how we define. And to assign value or modify value into state, you can use set state. Set state method you can use. So syntactically, we use set state, and in that, what value you want to configure. That means whatever the new value you want to modify, you have to define that. So in React, directly don't use variables because they are immutable. Always use state for storing data and accessing and using it. So how it works, see how we can manage it. Right. So what we can do is, let's remove this now. Means logic no need to remove here. We have to remove this part because product is stored in a variable actually. So what we do, I will do one thing. Yeah, remove. And here we have to define, we have to import one more option, that is use state. You have to import use state. Why React is not in curly brace? Because it is default. So this is not default. So use state. Now here we have to configure constant product. So here a technique is there. Destructing technique is required. Deconstructing technique is required. That means this is not destructing technique. This is only for accessing. Deconstructing technique means, so here I will give you. So always use destruction technique for state references. So destructing technique means constant. So we have to use in a square brace. This is product and set product. Set product is equal to use state, and we need to configure like this. So what is product? Product is a getter. Getter means it is used to access the value, and set product is setter. It is used to store the value. To read the value, we have to use an getter. So product is getter and this is setter. So this is to access the value and this is to assign the value. This is the right technique. That means how we do? Syntactically, set product is equal to some value. We have to define like this. I told you set state. Set state means you have to use a setter for that. Through the setter, you can set state and define it. So set state and configure it. Right. So here we will see now how you can configure. Now product, here what is the right way? We defined one product, another one set product. Set product is equal to, we have to use state. In this use state, it is an object type. Directly you can define the values, or later you can define the values based on configurations, right? So how we can directly define the values? How you can directly define the values? So how you can directly define the values? Generally what we have to do. So we have to define name. So what is it? So currently name is some TV. So another price is some price. Okay. Another one is stock. Stock is some true. And preview. Preview is from some, this is speaker. Yeah. JBL something. Yeah. Here we have speaker .jpg. These details are already configured inside it. We are accessing them and using. How to access them? We have to access with reference of product. And here we are doing it. We are accessing and displaying that. That means it is going to show that. It is working in a same way, no change. Why? Because this time we are defining using the state. But very important is when you are doing any modification here, it's not allowing modification. Then actually it is not allowing modification, because for that we have to write event binding, because in React by default everything is only one-way binding. In React by default everything is one-way binding. Even you use a state, it is modified. It allows to modify, but when it will allow to modify, you have to write an event. That means how do we define the event? You see, to define the event, so when user is making the change in the text box, so what is the event to write? On key up. On key up, we have to use a binding expression and we have to tell a method name. Method name is like, so name changed, that is the method name. We have to write that method inside the function. Here we have to write the function. What is the function? Name changed. What this function have to do? So set product. It has to set product by using this setter. And what it is an object. In that, what to set? We have to set name. Name as what? So name is whatever the value you are entering into it. That means, for example, how to get the value entered inside this text box. How to enter the value, how to access the value entered inside the text box. You have to use jQuery technique. jQuery technique means event arguments we learned. Na? How to use the event argument E. So through event argument E dot target, remember na? E dot target dot value. So this is jQuery like technique you have to use. In jQuery, I already told you, we have only one event argument. In JavaScript, two event arguments, this and event. In jQuery, only E, event argument. That event argument allows to access the members of object by using target. Event members are directly accessible by using E, and object members are accessible by using target. This is binded with which object? Text box. So this text box related value you can access and you can use it here. This is actually set product reference. That means it allows you to make the change here. But still, see, this image is changed. Na? Why that image is changed? Price is changed. This became out of stock. Why it is happening? Because it is happening because what is the problem in this is you are defining only one. That means only this. Others are null. Others also need to be defined. So that means we need to keep the others and configure them. One more point is, as per the rules here, suppose is text box having any name? Text box is not having a name. What is the reference name I given as name? Now see here still, so when you are making the changes into it, it should allow the changes into it. Why it is not allowing changes? Because for that we have to learn about event changing techniques also, event binding. We'll see that. This is not complete event binding. Whether event is working or not, we will see that how we can configure the event, because generally if I am not using set state, that means name changed is an event on key up, I am using an alert some high like this I am defining. And see here, I am not binding any value into it. I am not binding any value into it. We are not binding any value into that. Now you can see here, so we are not binding the value anything, and I typed here, it is working. That means event is working, but on that event, we need to update the value and display. Collecting the value is same. What is the collecting value? Here we use e dot target dot what? Value. That means what it has to do, it should get the value you are typing inside. So everything is working fine, but the point here is it is not updating back. To update back, you need so many techniques to handle. I will tell you one by one. Right? First technique, our concept is how to access the data and how to present the data. First, up to this part, we will see. We don't use any events and all, because for that you have to learn event binding concept, right? As of now, we are not using any event binding, just only how to declare some data, how to access and present it. That's one. First, we will see one-way binding, how to handle one-way binding, right? Example is this. Let me copy this example and paste this. Okay, this is example. First, we are discussing about one-way binding only. Then we will go into two-way binding. Now, in one-way binding, you are accessing the data from an object and presenting. What is this? This is an example of presenting object data. Okay. Now let's see how we can present array. Presenting array. How we can present the arrays. How we can define the arrays. Previously, for presenting array, lot of technique is there. Now see, I will remove this now. I will clean up this here. Just empty. Okay, we have just a fragment. React fragment is there. Instead of React fragment, we can just use an empty. That's enough. Now we will create some array. So constant, what is it? Products, and set products is equal to use state, and this is an array this time. Array, simple array I will use. Suppose I will give the name as categories, and I will give set categories, and here we are giving categories all. So electronics like this, footwear. So we are defining like this. Okay. Now I want to display them here into the categories list. I want to display categories list into an ordered list. Unordered list I want to display. You have seen what we have done in JavaScript and jQuery. What to do in JavaScript and jQuery you have seen. But see here now, you create unordered list or ordered list. Here we need to generate the item dynamically, then put a dynamic expression. Now, what we have to do, we have to read every item from categories. Now this time, to read generally every item for categories, earlier what we were doing, for iterator, for each iterator in jQuery we used each iterator. Now, can you tell any another array method you have learned to read all the values from array? To read all the values from an array. To read the values from array. You have categories. Categories is an array. Dot map. I told you map. find method, filter method, remember? Find, filtered, right? We learned about find, we learned about filter, we learned about map, right? So these are used here. Right? He invented some new thing for each. You remember everything other than what we have learned. Genius. So don't tell what we have learned. So he will tell what he have learned from some space. So, because you technology people are having space technology, you will get everything other than what we have learned. Means what we are discussing, you will ignore that. Rest of nonsense you want. That is what many people look for. That is why, because of your kind of brain set and attitude, you will be kicked out of interviews every time, right? Because of this kind of attitude and all. Because minimum common sense will not be there. What we discussed, everything keep aside. They will ask only what we haven't discussed. That is simply silly thing, right? Because such kind of people cannot even crack any level interviews easily. Their brain set is like that, right? That means time waste, unnecessary time waste concepts they want, right? So don't get into such things. So, right, because we are teaching you exactly what is being used and what is being asked regularly. Anything extra is your brain cannot handle all of them. So waste of time, even thinking about them, right? So regularly what majority of people do you also do the same. Don't try to be unique by yourself. Then you will be unique forever, right? That's the reason follow. I showed you so many methods in array, right? Map, find, filter, right? You have to use them, right? Now map is an iterator. If you remembered, it is an iterator. How to iterate? See, map uses a callback function. We will use a technique here. Just read category implies it should return a presentation. If you remembered, map returns a presentation. We will create a list item. In the list item, we will put an expression. In that expression, we will print every category. That's how we print. That means every category from the categories we are accessing and presenting it. We are using this technique. Now this looks little more simplified than your jQuery also, because in jQuery we have to use append child, append, but here we need to just design the UI directly here, and it should get that and display. It's very simple to handle. Suppose I want to generate a drop down. Now I hope you can do it. So select category, select category. Category, what we have to do, select. What we have to do, binding expression. So we need to create categories dot map. So we read every category, and for every category, what we have to do, we have to generate an option. And option uses here text. Text is nothing but category. So that means it generates a drop down for everyone. Similarly, links, similarly, tables, we will see, right? Basic thing I will tell you, because already I told you this is not React sessions. This is only introduction. So I will not monitor everything, just only few things I will tell you. So the concept is, this is more simplified now. So for example, now I will copy this. I will paste here. This is presenting array. Suppose presenting complex data like JSON type data. Presenting JSON type data. Let's do that and see here. So then I will show you how to get it from APIs also. We will see that actually how to handle it. Okay. Now here the concept is how we can present it and how do we define. One more technique is here. Suppose I will put some complex data. So not this, I will put a constant. Nested also constant. Here we have products. So and set products and use state. And here we will define array of objects. Array of objects name is TV and the price is equal to some price. Another name is some mobile, and here we have price as some price. Okay, I want to present it in a tabular form. Then simple table some width is equal to some 400 and height, as height is not required, border is equal to 1. And for this table, here we are configuring the simple table header and with row and cell. And cell or heading, TH. We have name and we have price. These two are defined inside the table. Now I want in the table body, T body, I want here dynamic expression. We need to generate a row for every product. So what we have to do, products dot map, we read every product, and for every product what we have to do, generate a row. In that row we need to put one cell. This cell should contain product dot name. Second cell should contain product dot price. That's how we are defining product dot price. And you can see that is displayed fine. But one technical issue is there. This is very important. Actually, so here you can iterate over the collection, and present in UI by using map. You can iterate over the collection and present by using map. But what problem you will face is here is map. Here map is an implicit iterator. So that we already know it is an implicit iterator, we can handle it. But very important is the major thing is React requires a unique key for every iterating item. React requires a unique key for every iterating item. If you don't define that, it will show error. Any unique key for iterating item. If you don't define that, it will show error. That means generally here, observe carefully. Now output looks normal, but let's go to the console, inspect and go to the console. You see there is an error. It says that each child in list should have a unique key. That is missing. Currently in the output, it is not showing any error. But it is telling this problem. React requires a unique key for every iterating item. Mandatory. So otherwise it will be a technical issue later. So that means what is iterating item here? Iterating item is TR. That means this row will repeat several times. If row is repeating several times, then every time it should have a key. The key must be a unique key. I will use the product name only. Generally what we do, product ID or product, any code is unique, we use that. But currently we don't have ID or anything. You can use name as key. But key is important. Key is important. So if you give key, now there is no problem in this. Now let's see, no issues. Right? Technically, anywhere. So that means previously we generated a drop down. Option should have a key. We generated li. Li should have a key. Here we generated row. Row should have a key. That means having the key iterating is important. Technically, it is mandatorily required. Okay. This is another example, means how we can iterate over complex data. Iterate over complex data. Now, you can use this for presenting your APIs. You can use this for your bootstrap. But one more problem will come here. So what is it? JSX. We are using JSX. JSX will not allow attributes to have dynamic values. Dynamic values. Hence, always use properties. So always use properties. That means if I write like this, suppose we have a list item. So class is equal to text danger. So this is not valid. This is invalid. Why invalid? Can you tell? Read the above sentence and tell me why it is invalid. Because class is an attribute. And in JavaScript, there is no class attribute. Na? How you can access it? By using class name. By using class name. That is what the attribute we learned in JavaScript. In JavaScript, how we dynamically apply the class? We dynamically apply the class by using class name property. And through class name, you have to define. That means text danger or anything you can apply. So it is mandatory that in JSX, you cannot use attributes. So attributes you cannot use, you have to use properties. So that means it will not allow class name. It will not allow class. It will allow only class name. If you are defining CSS. I will show you now with JSX how to present. First, for that, we will enable Bootstrap here. So enable Bootstrap for React application. How to enable Bootstrap for React application? First, install Bootstrap. In React application, npm install Bootstrap and npm install Bootstrap icons. You have to install Bootstrap first. So you have to install Bootstrap first. Now, after installing Bootstrap, how to enable is different here. Generally, earlier what we do is we link that in HTML page. But here we have to link that in index.js file. So see, let's install. Okay, I will open this terminal. npm install Bootstrap, save, and npm install Bootstrap icons, save. After installing Bootstrap and Bootstrap icons, you have to go to, you have to go to index.js. Index.js, here we have to import CSS. So import dot slash dot slash node modules slash bootstrap slash dist css and bootstrap dot css. That's how we do. And what about icons? Import dot slash node modules bootstrap icons slash font slash what is it, bootstrap icons dot css. You have to now once you enable these two, import this in index.js. Copy. So import css into index.js like this. We have to import. So we have to import that here. Now after that, implement class by using class name property. That means li class name is equal to bi. So bi some Facebook, something like this. That's how we define. We cannot use class. Now here you can see in the design, so it is working fine. Bootstrap is working fine for table. Now how to apply clearly login component. So to this empty container, I'm using class name is equal to, suppose I am using text danger. So here I am configuring like text or say container fluid. It's not allowed because this is an empty container. You can't do that. In that case, now what you have to do? So we need to put another container inside it now. So we need to keep another container, div. And in the div, I'm just using class is equal to, so container fluid. It's not allowed. You can see class equal to container fluid. So here it is showing here working fine, but observe in the code. So it shows an error. It says class, that means invalid property. It is class name. Now the question is why it is working and why it is showing error. It is working because DOM is understanding. It is showing error because virtual DOM is not understanding. If virtual DOM is not understanding, DOM is understanding, then again general JavaScript CSS only. That means now React is unable to handle on virtual DOM, then it will not be faster. That means it is working on actual DOM, but it should work on virtual DOM. If it works on virtual DOM, then only performance will be there. Otherwise, no use, right? That means now how do we make this configure as class name? Then it will get that and it will display. All others you need to configure in the same way, right? Here we have to use for table. Just I am using the class name, table and table hover like this, and it will apply that and display. This is Bootstrap, how you are configuring. But once you know Bootstrap, now the presentation through complex data, I will show you how to handle that. Now let's see an example of how we can get the data from API and present it here this time. So presenting data from API, we will see. Presenting data from API, how we can do that. Actually, to present data from API, you can use fetch. So you can use fetch, jQuery, Ajax, or any third party library like Axios. So many third party libraries will be there. Axios is one popular library for interacting. Difference, already I told you, what is the difference between fetch and Ajax, jQuery Ajax? What is difference between fetch and jQuery Ajax? Fetch is only get, jQuery Ajax is get and post and put and delete anything. One more is fetch. Fetch will not directly return JSON. We have to convert into JSON. Ajax directly returns into JSON. But Ajax also have problem. What problem? You remember? Ajax is having CORS issues. To overcome the CORS issue, what we done? We in the backend written a CORS logic, but Axios inbuilt it handles CORS. That is the reason, depending on situation, we have to use requirements, right? We can use third-party libraries, we can access and use them. We can use fetch method, but very important is here. So you have to fetch data on initialization of component, so which is called component mount, component mount means component initialize. Generally, at the time of initializing of a component, we have to fetch the data. At the time of initializing the component, we have to call it. Actually for that, when you are fetching data initialization, generally initialization, old versions used to use various techniques, but in the latest version of React, so we have an option, component initialization is defined by using use effect hook. By using use effect hook. Component initialization is defined by using use effect hook. Right. So actually, if it is a class, on class initialization, we want some actions to perform. Then where do we write? We have a constructor. But here it is a function. It is a function. Function will not have a constructor, because our component is designed in a function. Function don't have constructors. Then what is initialization of component? If it is a class, initialization is constructor. But if it is a function, what is initialization? We don't have anything. So that is the reason now React provides some methods. By using those methods, we can identify the state. State means, is it initialized or not? At the time of initialization, we can handle. How? For example, see, currently I kept an empty array, use state. What is it? Products empty array. Okay. Now we have to write initialization. That means we have to import use effect. Use effect. We have to write that use effect method here. We have to write use effect method. Use effect. Use effect uses a callback function. It uses a callback function. And it uses a dependency. It uses an array dependencies. This indicates, is that initialization dependent on any reference? If it is not dependent on any reference, you have to keep it empty. If it is dependent on any reference, you have to tell that reference. For that, first you need to know what are dependents and all using dependency injection mechanism. As of now, you can leave it empty. Here, how to write, you know. What is the method? Fetch. Fetch from which location? http://fakestoreapi.com/products. And here we have to do dot then. Then uses a callback function response. So response dot JSON. After the response, then we have dot then again. This time we have data. So this data need to be stored inside this products array. Who is going to store that into products array? Set products. Into that we have to send the value. What is the value to be sent? Whatever data is present. That means whatever data we collected, the data will be stored inside this set products. That means this products is having the data coming from this API. Now how to access the products and present it? So here you are using a products map. In that products map, we don't have name and all this, right? What we are having, suppose product ID is there. Another product title will be there, title, and product price P lowercase. All these we have to follow. Product name, price, like this we are defining. And that data should come and display. This time in React, we are accessing the data from an API and presenting it. Accessing from API and presenting it. So from API, the data comes and presents. Earlier, we have to depend on, so jQuery, Ajax and all. Here also we can use. We done the same, but presentation becomes easy. Suppose now I want to present in a better way. That means this is an example. I want to present in a card style. Then you know. So what we have to do, remove the table here. We want to present in a card style. To present in a card style, I will put a heading. So products catalog. And here I will define div. Okay, what is it? Class name. Class name is equal to dflex. Dflex. Another one, flex wrap. Okay, this I have defined. Actually, we can have style. Style, we can put the style. Here, style is having another property. So height, how much? You have to define the height. Height in pixels, we need to configure, suppose 500 pixels. And here we can give overflow as auto. Overflow auto like options we have configured. That is the content, but it is empty currently. We want to generate a card. So here we have to define div. In the binding expression, we have to keep the div. In the div, class name. is card. Okay, for this card, again, I'm just giving style. Style we have to put in a curly brace, again curly brace. We have to define width as suppose 200 pixel, like this. And for the card, I'm giving like margin 2 and padding 2, like this. And here we are defining image. Now image uses an SRC. SRC is equal to, it is dynamically coming from. Now this is map na. So here everything should be designed in a products dot map. In the map, we have to access every product, and here we need to present that. Understood? Here we need to present, and what it should display here, product dot image. So width is not declared. Height is equal to, so suppose 150, and class name is equal to card image top, like this. And below that, I designed here another div, and here we configured the class name as card header. And here I defined so a paragraph. In that I have a title. I am just giving product dot title. Okay. Now this is the way of presenting all the card information, and height, width, everything you know. Rest of the concept you know. Now the point is this time, so it is a different approach of presenting the data. So this is same, we can use fetch, we can use jQuery also. We have to install jQuery again and use the jQuery library. But here third-party libraries are very much used. They make more simple and more faster in communication and more features actually. I will show you a third party how we can handle that. And it can be nested iterations also. So it can be, this is example of API. Fake store API. It can have nested iterations also. Nested iteration means inside iteration, another iteration. That means what you can do, nested iteration means a map inside map. For example, so if you remembered, I showed you a map concept. I showed you nested iterations in general JavaScript. A for loop inside another for loop. That means suppose categories dot map. We have to read every category. And what we have to do is here we are printing suppose a list item. In the list item, I am printing the category dot name. It is category name. And after that, inside it again, we have to perform a map. That means inside this list item, after printing the category name, here we are defining the category name and presenting. Now what we can do is inside this, we can use another map. That means this time here what we can do is another expression. Here we can configure category dot products dot map. Actually, this is nothing but we can access every product and we can present that information here. We can access every product and product can be displayed in an ordered list again. Actually, list item inside another list item. That is multi-level hierarchy. Actually, for that, what we do, so inside it, we will put an OL. This is how we put in that OL. Okay, this is OL close inside the list item. This should repeat list item, and list item should display every product information. Like this, we can create nested maps. That means what happens, it will display all categories in first level, all products in the second level. This type of iterations already we done in JavaScript. So, and in jQuery also I showed you the same but here we use a map inside another map that is presenting the complex data, right? This is the basic approach of one-way binding. Now the concept, one more I will show you here, how to handle two-way binding. Two-way binding means how we can create a form and interact with the form. That we'll see next session. Tomorrow we will do that, right? In tomorrow's session, we will finish this part. Two-way binding and routing, I will tell you with that enough. I will close this React because we are not learning React.js here. So how two-way binding works and how to design a form, I will show you. That's it, right? Routing, navigation, how it works. That's it. With that, we will finish this. And we will see testing deployment, how happens in our web technology, how to test applications, how to deploy, make them live, right? These things we will discuss. Tomorrow we'll continue.